There we go. There we go. Ha-ha! What's up guys, Travis here again with Lucky Tackle Box, and today we're going to break down fishing clear water. One of the most important factors to start with when approaching this technique is using a lifelike looking lure. And Live Target's Gizzard Shad, which we included in this month's box, is perfect crankbait for doing just that. The setup with this is really important. I start off with 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon line for two reasons. First, the narrow diameter line gives the bait the action needed to generate those strikes. And second, fluorocarbon line is virtually invisible underwater, which is absolutely essential when fishing these clear water situations. Next, I pair that up on a slow to medium speed gear ratio like this Daiwa Tatula 6.3 to 1. Lastly, I pair that with Castaway 7-foot medium cranking rod. The biggest advantage to a cranking rod is how much bend it has. If you're using a rod that's too stiff, when that fish comes up and nips at it, you're actually gonna pull that bait right out of its mouth. But having a soft rod like a cranking rod, when that fish comes up and nips at it, that rod gets enough give that you're gonna end up hooking that fish. Second is, with treble hooks don't often get as much cartilage as single hooks do. So this fish has a higher probability of being able to split the hook. So when you're fighting that fish in and it makes its runs, you want that rod to give so that fish is not able to get the leverage it needs to spit the hook. So when talking about retrieval, there's actually 3 keys that I really like to emphasize. The first is to make long casts. In clear water, obviously they can see from far away, so you want to make sure that you're getting that bait far away from you. The second factor is the speed of your retrieve. What's happening is those bass actually can see this bait from a long ways off. So they have more time to decide whether they actually want to eat it or not. And sometimes they'll just come up and nip at it and won't fully commit. If you're experiencing just short little strikes or you're seeing bass follow in the bait, a good tip is to actually speed up your retrieve and reel faster. What this is gonna do is it's gonna force these bass to make faster decisions. They're not gonna get to analyze whether this bait is real or not. They're gonna see it going over their head and react. And this can oftentimes trigger fish that wouldn't have otherwise bit. The third key is actually in the retrieve. Now, if I just cast and reel this in, the bait is just doing its little wobble and coming onto the boat and looks like just kind of a normal bait. And active feeding fish will have no problem coming up and hitting this. But fish that aren't, or that just really aren't actively feeding, you can turn them on by giving a little bit more action to that crankbait. By just giving it a couple little twitches every 3 or 4 turns of the handle, you're gonna make that bait flare and it's gonna look like some kind of bait fish that's wounded, and those fish cannot pass up free opportunities for meals. Okay guys, when talking about location, it's very important to think like a bass. So the bass in clear water has to use all the resources it can to gain that advantage over the bait fish. The first one is gonna be an easy example. Just cover. Any kind of trees, any kind of grass, those bass are gonna hide and they're gonna wait for those bait coming by. So that's a good place for you to start. The second thing is gonna be low light situations. First thing in the morning and later in the evening, you've got lower light visibility, so those bass use that to sneak up on those prey. Third example is gonna be shade. In clear water, shade is so important. Whether it's from a tree, whether it's from a dock, or even if it's when the sun's coming up on a bank, if you fish that bank that's towards the sun, into the sun, you're actually gonna have a little bit of shade on that bank a little bit longer, and that's where those fish are gonna be feeding a little bit more actively for a little bit later in the day. Another example is that fish are gonna move a little bit deeper. When you come along a bank and maybe it's 5-foot visibility and you don't see any fish, a lot of times those bigger fish will actually be just a little bit deeper in that, where that water gets a little darker, and they'll be watching up in the shallows, waiting for those opportunities to come up and blast something. Just remember, when fishing clear water situations, there are certain steps that you can take to really maximize your time out in the water. And there's no step greater than using a realistic looking lure. Today we were using Live Target's Gizzard Shad. If you want to pick up that exact bait, I'll actually put a link down below in the description box over to tacklewarehouse.com. Once again, guys, I'm Travis Moran with Lucky Tackle Box. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button and comment in the section below. If you want to watch more videos, hit one of the links on the page or subscribe to our YouTube channel.